Hey, boys and girls, we are going to be moving right along in math. We're finishing up telling time this week and then we're going to be moving on to our last first grade topic. It's so exciting, right? We are almost there. You guys have been total rock stars through this whole thing. Today we're going to be on lesson 13.4, which is on page 727. It says, Noel has a music lesson at 3:30. At 4:30, he goes to the library. He gets ready at 5 o'clock so he can have dinner at 5:30. After dinner ends at 6 o'clock, he plays a game. How can you organize this information in a schedule? All right, so that's a lot that they just gave us. So we want, and it's hard to follow, we want to put it into a schedule like this so that it's easier for us to understand. Okay, so let's look at, I'm going to go through it, I'm going to circle all the times that they gave me here. 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. Okay, so those are the times that I'm working with. And I want to plug those in first because I think that'll be easier because I can put them in order. What's going to happen first, next, then last, right? So the first time that we have is 3:30, right? So 3:30 is the earliest time on our clock. So we'll go ahead and plug that in right in the first box. And after 3:30, what comes next? 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, and now 6. So we plugged in our times. And now we can go ahead and plug in the activities, what he does. So what was at 3:30? Noel has a music lesson at 3:30. At 4:30, he goes to the library. So 4:30, library. He gets ready at 5 o'clock. So he can have dinner at 5:30. After dinner ends at 6, he plays a game. So all I did was take the information here and put it in a schedule here. A schedule that makes sense. We want to make sure that it goes in order, right? Just like we're talking about in reading this week, sequencing, and we've talked about that, before. Like, you don't just start at the end. We always start at the beginning, first, next, then, right? So we put the times in order and then fill in the activities. So let's move on. On page 728, it says Mr. Diaz starts to read a story halfway between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. What time does Mr. Diaz start the story? Show the hands on the clock. So this is similar to the one that you looked at on the visual learning video on Pearson. So there's their schedule, and they did the same thing. They have the times in order with that. And they're saying he read a story halfway between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Well, we know when the big hand is on the 12, remember the big hand is the minute hand because it's the longer word, longer hand. We know that whenever that's on the 12, it's o'clock. So here we're at 8 o'clock, and we have to go all the way around the clock to get to 9 o'clock, right? So we don't want to go all the way around. We just want to go halfway. We want to go half of this clock. Make it easier to show on this one, right? Actually, even draw it right on there. I'm going to move my minute hand. We took that circle, we split it in half. Because 30 minutes is half an hour, right? 60 minutes in an hour, so 30 is half an hour. And we learned last week that when the minute hand is on the 6, that's 30 minutes. So we say, 3:30, right? So halfway around the clock, we're not going all the way, we just go halfway and we stop. Right? And now they want us to draw the hands and say what time it is. Now, notice where that hour hand is. It's not right at the 8, but it's not at the 9 either. It's a halfway in between, right? So where we look at it, it's still 8, and it's 8:30. So we want to draw that shorter hand kind of in between the 8 and the 9, and the longer hand down at the 6 to show 8:30. So here he's thinking about it. He says, how can I make sense of this question? What does halfway mean? Well, we just talked about that. What is my thinking? The time between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock is 1 hour or 60 minutes. Half an hour is 30 minutes. Yep, 8:30 is halfway between 8 and 9. I can look back at the table to see if my answer makes sense. So, would he read the story at 8:30, which would be part of reading? Of course he would. That makes sense to me, right? So that's just him thinking about it. So it says to use Mr. Diaz's class schedule above to answer these questions. Circle the activity that starts at the time shown. All right, well, they already did number 1, so let's look at number 2. 10:30. What are they doing at 10:30? 8, 9, 10, 10:30. I just have to look. Up. All right. Right. And that part, explain your reasoning. I mean, that's pretty easy. Don't worry about it. We know our reasoning is that we found the 10:30 and we looked at the 10:30 and followed the schedule. So you don't need to write that. Over on page 729, you're going to do some more practices. Which activity did children do just before the bird watch? So these are where those sequence words are going to come in handy, right? Those before and after and next and later. So we need to watch for those. So which activity do children do just before the bird watch? So now we're looking at this chart over here, the nature trip schedule. And they tell you the times over here and what they're doing at that time. And we want to find bird watch. Here's bird watch. And just before they do a bird watch, what are they going to be doing? They'll be on a walk. And don't worry about the explain your reasoning part. Which activity or activities do children do after lunch? All right, well, let's look and find lunch. Up here's lunch. The sandwich. What do they do after? It doesn't say just after. It just says after. Well, they do more than one, don't they? They make a birdhouse and they pick flowers. Because both of those things are listed after lunch on the chart. Make a birdhouse and pick flowers. Easy peasy. Which activity starts at the time shown? Okay, so we got to look at the clock. There's my hour hand. It's halfway between the 12 and the 1. It's not 1 yet. It's still 12 is my hour. And this minute hand, the long hand, is pointing to the 6. And we know when that happens, it's one of our 30s. So it's 12:30. I can write that so I don't even forget it. And I'm going to look at my chart and see what are they doing at 12:30. 12:30. Oh, making a birdhouse. So you're just practicing using this to answer their questions. Super easy, right? So here, circle the time that shows a half hour past 3. So if it's 3 o'clock, right, almost there, 3 o'clock, we want to go half past that. So they're asking you, what time is it? And you're going to circle that answer down at the bottom. Okay. On page 730, there's a new chart. It's a family schedule. And it says that Andrew's family takes a day trip to the city. Help him solve problems using this schedule. So it's the same kind of thing as we did over here, but now we're doing a different schedule, the family schedule. And it says Andrew's family takes a day trip to the city. Right? I just read that. The minute hand fell off his clock. What time should the clock show when Andrew's family arrives at the aquarium? So you go over here, you find where it says aquarium and what time they go, and then you're going to draw the minute hand in to make that clock show the time. And you're also going to write the time underneath. Okay, easy peasy. Number 8, Andrew writes down all the activities his family is doing at 30 minutes after the hour. How many activities did Andrew write? So all the ones that are 30 minutes after, all our 30s. So that's, we're just looking at the 30s and figuring out how many activities are there that are happening on the 30s. Okay. On page 731, they give you another look up here and explain it a little more. Again for you with the class schedule. And then you're going to use this schedule to answer questions 1 and 2 on your own. It says you have to draw the hands on the clock to show when silent reading begins. And then I told you, don't worry about this, explain your reasoning. I'm going to cross it off. It doesn't even make sense. You know, I think this book is silly sometimes. So you're just going to draw the hands on the clock, and I want you to actually write the time there. All right. So silent reading, you go and you look, and it's 12:30. So I want you to write the time and then draw the hands. Same thing here. What time is it? 30 minutes after PE starts? Well, here's what time it starts. So what's 30 minutes later? You're going to write the time here. Right? Don't worry about explaining why. On the back, last couple, here we're using a fundraiser schedule right up in this corner to answer these questions. It's about a fun run. It says, Gina School's hosting a fundraiser for music programs. Can you use the schedule to help solve problems about the fundraiser? Yeah, we can. All right, so use your understanding of telling and writing time to solve their problems. All right, what time do the introductions start at the fundraiser? Just look up here and see what it says, and then write the time in this clock. And the last one, Gina drew the hands on the clock to show the time the closing speech starts. Is she correct? So this is what Gina wrote. You need to see, is she right? You use the chart to tell you. If she's not right, then you're going to write it correctly here. Right? Easy peasy. So it's just about putting things in order and being able to read that chart and knowing that 30 minutes, all of our 30s are half of the hour, right? 30 minutes is a half an hour. When you go from o'clock to 30, you're going halfway around the clock. Half an hour, 30 minutes, right? O'clock 30, o'clock 30, o'clock 30. You guys got this. All right, if you need help, just let me know. I'm happy to walk you through it and help you any way that I can. But I think you'll be all right with this one.